Welcome to case file number 2, the Pyramids of Ancient Egypt. This week on The Lost Info, we will be exploring the histories, the mysteries, and the conspiracies surrounding these magnificent structures. The pyramids have been a topic of wonder and awe for generations. We are seekers of knowledge and hunters of truth, and as we approach this global discussion, we will be taking a step back into history as we strive to understand the unknown. We are unbelievably excited for you to join us as we dive into the ancient pyramids.
Hey, welcome to the Lost Info Podcast. Welcome back. I am keeping you awake, Jake, as you know, or you will know. And then I have with me my West Coast correspondent,
Westside Duncan.
Hey, Duncan, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How are you doing today?
It's pretty good, man. It's been a long week. I'm glad to get back on a new episode.
For sure.
And thanks to all of our fellow seekers of knowledge.
Our truth seeker friends.
Exactly. We're all on the same boat, man. We're not trying to paint the picture as if we know everything. We're trying to piece the puzzle together, just like you.
We're trying to say that we all don't know anything.
Exactly. Well, that's what it comes down to. We all really don't know shit. Yeah. And honestly, and this one, the case file on the pyramids, and that's this week, by the way. It basically tells you that we have no fucking clue what's going on. We're all just kind of like taking little pieces. And unfortunately, the Egyptologists, they have a set idea of what they concluded together of what happened. And obviously nobody was there. So they're not willing to break from that standard or go outside the box. And they're not willing to accept new discoveries as of yet. There's only one guy, and I believe his name was John Anthony West, and we'll get into him. But that guy, he does come up with some crazy theories, but he also was the first one, I believe, to get him to look at the Sphinx, which this one's about pyramids, but, the Sphinx, and we pretty much are going to be going towards the Great Pyramid of Giza. The Sphinx outside of it is, now they're willing to look at the water erosion being at 12,000 years ago, when they're saying 4,500 years ago is when the pyramid was built. So there's a big gap in time. And so, and that's just the thing. When we go into the timeline, again, we don't know shit because we're talking about their conclusion and their story, their final story as of now, is that 4,500 years ago, an ancient race of people that weren't very civilized and, primitive as far as they say, with copper chisels or bronze chisels and simple tools did this. And to me, that's like, well, that's already bullshit.
Yeah, they have no idea how they were built in that time. In that time period, to the extent that they were built. It's just like there's still not really a clear answer as to a legit possibility of how it was so well done, especially with the amount of people they predicted to be living there at that time and who was doing all that labor. And
exactly. And the story's changed so much, even not from their official story as of now, but the different people that have finally got like different theories that we'll go into later, even looked at on a possibility. It still doesn't take into account multiple other things. So when they come up with a conclusion like, okay, this is feasible in just this area, they don't take into account all of the other things that go into these pyramids, meaning that just because, like the ramp theory, okay, yes, but you would have had to build a ramp the size of the pyramids within the pyramid to get them up there. So yeah. It's like, well, okay, well, yeah, in theory, but
I know that in a lot of like religious circles, they believe that like it could have been the Jewish people, and there were so many of them, and that's why they were able to build it that way and stuff, because they were all enslaved there at that time. But the dates don't match up to when historians believe that Jewish people could have potentially been enslaved there, and that pyramid's being built. The timelines are different, so that doesn't really give a good answer either.
Well, and I think that you'll see as when we get on more topics, somehow the Jews always play a part in some shit. So, they they were very prevalent in all of history, and
For
so
sure. For sure.
and let me make this clear. I'm not on the side of Hitler, but I can see I see what he was doing. He was trying to make eliminate controllers, but I'm not saying he was right on any means. And the way he did it, and not all Jews are bad, so it's not in that sense. Don't get me wrong on that. But, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of emails. And if you want to criticize me on that, it's thelostinfopodcast at gmail.com. But the thing is that they do play a heavy part through all history, even today. I mean, they're still running Hollywood. They're still doing all kinds of other things. I just found out, and we're going to have a great guest coming down the road. And I'm not going to break that yet, but he had mentioned, and he's very involved in the setup of our community where I live in Illinois, that it's all ran by Jews. I'm like, what? Our small area? Yeah. And it's actually kind of weird because I would have never thought that. So, I mean, I've just heard that putting this guest together today, and we'll get back to you on that, but it'll be a fun one.
They're powerful people.
They are very powerful people, and I will say that they have been prevalent all through history. So if that was the agenda of Hitler, was to try to eliminate that power, I could see where he was going. I don't agree or condone it, but in the sense that we've all tried to dominate or eliminate others in this world, as far as our existence goes back, I do see where he was going with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, just back to them being in Egypt and all that too, because there's a sort of a change in timelines with that. But then there's also, not too long ago, there was basically like a rock found. There were carvings in it that is the only reference in Egypt that they've ever found to anything referring to like the tribe of Israel. So it's a weird thing because like you have, scientists and historians and stuff saying that these are two different dates, that they could or could not be there. But then you actually have someone who's found a reference to them being in Egypt at all, which is sort of progress in the sense that like there is some potential truth to that story.
Yeah, and the thing that I guess the part that gets me is that, obviously there's theories on Atlantis and like a really ancient civilization, but as far as the timeline goes that main media pushes, it's just too odd that you have our first civilization, main civilization, that has built something of this magnitude and this precision, that they're the first ones with like absolute knowledge. It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I agree. And another reason why the Jewish people building it thing doesn't add up either is because it didn't just happen in Egypt. I mean, it's like you have a lot of the Mayan ruins and a lot of the, I mean, there's something similar where they're all lined up with the stars, and they're in they're specific places on the earth between the equator, and I mean, it's all of them are very specifically placed, which is weird.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that's what also gets me, is that on this timeline, they say that this was, one of the first advanced civilizations that are capable of doing this. Yet you have them all over the globe at the time with no communication. And they say that they don't even have a number of how many were at that time, but it's like in the thousands around the world. I mean, I just found some stats today, whatever else. I was kind of looking through some stuff. In Sudan alone, there's 222 pyramids that they think from that time. And they say that some of those were built 500 years before this advanced civilization. So it's like, wait a second. But I mean, they're not to the precision that the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's the
But
same thing, with like in Tikal, in Guatemala, it's which, and I've been to Guatemala, and it's amazing, but they have they don't even know how far those pyramids have gone. Like they found Tikal and stuff like that, but they continue to just find all throughout those jungles just more and more and more and more places, and there's a lot of things.
Well, they were saying that, I heard that too, in the Amazon. I guess like so much of that is completely undiscovered,
Yeah.
that they were saying that there's probably however many just in the Amazon rainforest alone. And if you again, you're already talking about across seas, across globes, at the time of really not much transportation. Obviously, we know that the Egyptians had boats, since that's what they were. That was my dog. But since that's what they were, taking the pharaohs in, which again, the pyramids are supposedly tombs for pharaohs.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that at all, because obviously, well, first of all, there was no bodies, but second, and they could have been looted, I guess, but
Yeah.
there's no proof that that's what they were there for.
Well, and not to get on a different topic at all, but there's a lot of things across the world that kind of lend to the idea that there were civilizations before the time that we believe there. I mean, like, you look at the stuff with like Easter Island and like stuff like that we don't know what that stuff is, or Stonehenge, and like why
all topics coming.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But we don't know like why those things are there, and it's all these things that have been there for a long, long time. And, so there's a lot of stuff that kind of points to the lack of information we actually have. But
that's the thing, is that it's and I keep cutting you off and getting excited to talk about this. But that's the thing, is that just recently they started digging below the heads of Easter Island. Like, nobody thought to do that prior.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, they're still discovering stuff in Egypt all the time. And, it's interesting. A while back, I went to when King Tut came to Los Angeles, I went in and I did the whole like exhibit and all that stuff. And I'm like, I mean, they had this whole theory, the Egyptian people. I mean, they have these very, very specific things about like how you travel through the afterlife, and like,
oh yeah,
the things you'll see, the things you'll meet, the people, like the creatures you fight, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, those people are talking to aliens or something.
Well, they have to. Well, that's. So I wasn't going to go there yet, but I'm glad you broke it in, because everyone wants to know, like, are you thinking aliens? Now, I'm going to have to say that either there was a very advanced race that passed on this information,
yeah,
or it was absolutely channeled or contributed by a way more intelligent race of beings, which would have to be extraterrestrial at this point. And that's kind of going off this shattered, broken timeline that we have, which I that's the thing, is I think that more archaeologists, more scientists in this younger generation are breaking away. Another guy we'll talk about that has a lot to say on pyramids is Graham Hancock, or Pound search that. But the thing is that, a lot of his theories are breaking the chains, and they did back in the 80s. And now it's coming light that his information is being proven with new technology and more digging and finding out the answers, and not being chained to this education that is stuck in place. And honestly, we haven't moved any. And he talks about how people's careers would be ruined if they talked outside of what, let's quote unquote, the Egyptologists have gathered and said this is what it was, because it isn't what it is. So
for sure. And you see that across the board, just because people have information, just can connect to so much more information on the internet. And it's not like you just have to travel miles and miles and then go to a library and whatever.
Yeah, and the younger generation is ready to break the chains of just saying, yeah, okay, we'll buy into what you said. Like, they're ready to do the research themselves.
I mean, it's all, to me, it just seems like it's really all bullshit. Like, I
Honestly,
mean, like everything that we think,
what
like,
we're telling you is bullshit. Because,
yeah,
I mean, all we're doing is essentially looking up lost info
yeah,
and
yeah.
spreading it and having a global discussion with everybody else out there. You know, if you
I
guys want to
mean,
talk to us or tell us your theories or get involved in Patreon, we'll have all the links below. You can contact us at thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. And that's the thing. You come in, talk to us, and tell us what you think, because this is a global discussion. Because obviously, the realms that are set of what is actually known is bullshit, because nothing's known, because nobody was there.
yeah, no, I mean, it's very true. And it's, even with medical stuff too, that's something that is like, we finding these written documents and stuff about people that have had healing in different, through different herbs and stuff like that, of diseases that we think that we can't heal and can't, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on, and you're just like, across the board, whether it be religion,
Oh, that is
politics,
weird.
politics,
Yeah.
like, health, science, it's all like, it's kind of all like just a bunch of people pretending like they know what they're talking about. Like, I mean,
It really is. And it becomes kind of at the point when knowledge is so widely spread now in the time that we're in. It just becomes like, okay, now the information can be readily available, and not just theories, but, you know, just like that, like I said, what was his name? The John Anthony West. His theory was never even brought to light until there was really internet. I mean,
yeah,
and that's the thing, is like this guy was saying the water erosion on the Sphinx dates back another 6,000 years. How do you take into account for this is the advanced civilization of the time, but you're missing 6,000 years prior to that? They built this huge ass. Well, they say that the face has been changed now, but something of a lion or cat or whatever garden. Maybe the pyramids weren't there, or maybe they were. There's
yeah,
also there's also theories that these pyramids have been around for a way longer, 25,000 years, and that, the Egyptian civilization came across them and was like, "Hey, those seem pretty important.
this is a good place to set up.
Yeah, let's set up camp."
What are these things?
Yeah, and then start studying what the fuck is this in the middle of well, I don't think it was desert at that time, but let's go by, this massive structure that obviously isn't natural.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about. I mean, imagine if they're like some of the first people that think they're people. Even say that they evolved, even if they evolved from monkeys or whatever. Imagine all of us, like, just way back then, and we're like the first people on Earth, and we think we're the first people on Earth, and we've never met hardly anyone, and then we stumble across these just giant structures sticking out of the ground,
You'd be mind blown.
yeah, and they're like, all right, like, guess we'll hang out here.
Yeah. What is this, man? Who did this shit? Well, I think that honestly, to me personally, I've never seen a UFO. I really want to. I've never had an abduction that I know of. Well, I will say that I am fascinated with extraterrestrials, and I hope to one day be able to validate that proof myself. And I'm always searching, but I would have to say that they were probably more
Tinder and everything.
Yeah, aliens, come find me.
Will.
I love probing.
Yeah.
I love it. As long as you have to use lube, though.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing, is that, if we're talking that this could have been, 25,000 years, I think they were more prevalent in history than they are modern times, because now they have radar, they have ways to see them coming through. I think they were more involved with humans back then. Now it's like they kind of have to stay out, otherwise they have to break the whole story. And
are you talking about aliens?
Yeah, and I'm saying there was supposedly treaties signed with Eisenhower and whatever else, and you'd have to think if they weren't, they would already came down and broke the story. So I think that they were more involved when there wasn't structured governments with massive weapons.
That makes a lot of sense. And they're like, especially, if we base all these religions on experiences with those aliens, and then they're
Well, they
like,
talk about, chariots of fire going through the sky. You
yeah,
just watch any ancient aliens thing. They
yeah,
tie history with aliens to a point where you're like, well, fuck, that does make so much sense. I have to kind of give it a listen.
yeah. I mean, there's stories of in multiple religions of prophets that didn't die, that just ascended into
Well,
heaven.
yeah, Quetzalcoatl. He was
Ooh,
the god of, well, I think it was Azteca, but it came from the Mayan religion. But he was the god of creation and peace. So it
yeah,
was like, and he was supposed to return just like everybody else's story before Christianity. So everybody has like the same concept of a being coming down, and we'll get into that too, deities, but they all have the same thing. A being, something came down, gave us insight or how to live, how to be good people. We killed them or whatever it was. They died. They resurrected themselves, left this earth as life bodies. There's got to be something to all the connections, and we're all waiting for a return. So we're all focused on the same kind of thing throughout multiple religions, throughout
yeah,
our whole history. We have these beings that are showing us how to live, taking themselves out of this physical third dimension body that we feel that we're stuck in, but showing us that you can resurrect yourself as a light being, which we're all energy. We know that. And so everything is pointing to it was just basically like helpers of humanity trying to say this is what you could do if you
yeah.
weren't stuck and confined to what you've been taught. So
Well, yeah, or not helpers. I mean, perhaps that's where we get a lot of our ideas of what are good and what are evil. Like, I mean,
that's true.
there might be, aliens that are trying to help us, and there might be ones that are trying to hurt us.
Well, and that I would agree, because I would have to say in the world of free thought and free will and whatever else and conscious, that there has to be deceivers too. So
Yeah. I mean, it's in a lot of human nature,
yeah,
so it's like it stemmed from something somewhere.
yeah, or splice DNA from extraterrestrials.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Hereditary memory. Let's just deceive everybody we can.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I mean, there's some weird stuff. You hear. I mean, again, this is a different topic, but you hear about women who say they've been kidnapped and stuff like that, and a lot of them are like say that they were impregnated and like
There's a lot of those stories, man, and I would say
there's
there's
a
way
lot.
too many stories to say that they're all lying. I don't know.
I know, and it is bizarre because you go back to like the Book of Enoch and like all that stuff, and there's a lot of similar stories about that interbreeding type stuff.
Yeah.
And
Well, well, my theory, I mean, you have ancient gods, you have, you know, centaurs, you have all of that shit. So I'm guessing that those had to be god type extraterrestrials, something we couldn't understand. So we called them gods that were, basically just they liked this third dimension world and just
yeah,
liked the human woman and took advantage of that.
well, I mean, I think it's in any of the stories, it's interesting how, I mean, even the story of Jesus, like the Star of Bethlehem, this bright light that talked to people to
I
tell them
Yeah,
where to go and what to
yeah,
do.
sure
A-
sounds like a UFO to me.
And the star moves and they follow the star and it guides them to where they're supposed to go. I'm
Uh,
always like,
Well, I mean, it sounds extraterrestrial to me, And then like
that's
even there's other stories in the Bible where you talk about these beings showing up to his tent and whatever else and
yeah,
talking to him. Like, who the fuck were these beings? It sounds like an extraterrestrial story. They came from a
yeah.
chariot
I
of
mean,
fire in the sky. Like that sounds extraterrestrial as shit. They just had no way to explain it. They didn't have
yeah.
alien. They didn't have
I'm
the word UFO then.
I mean, in the old, I think the Old Testament, I think it's the story of Isaac. I think it's Isaac, and there's a story about like him getting in the middle of like him getting up in the middle of the night and physically wrestling. Like it's not just like a dream of something. Like he physically wrestled this.
Here's to you.
Yeah. Cheers. I wish I had a beer right now.
Well,
But he
we'll have that. We'll have that technology soon. I'll transport one to you.
perfect, yeah. But he like wrestled this angel in the middle of the night or whatever, like physically, and it damaged his hip or something like that. It's like his knee or his hip or something like that, and that's like a part of the story. And you're like, oh, Like, I mean,
Yeah, that sounds like paralysis.
like it could just be. I mean, there could be so many things. It could be. I guess my point is that our perspective of angels and demons or whatever, like, has to also be something that is
Well, I think they all could be in the same.
physicalized.
Yeah, I think
For
they all
sure.
could be in the same.
That's
Aliens, demons, angels,
Yeah.
entities, other dimensional creatures crossing over. I think that all kind of somehow, and Bigfoot, and Sasquatch. We're gonna get into that guy
And the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus.
Well, there is fairies actually. There's real stories about. I always thought like Peter Pan and all that. I thought, well, there's no way that that was. But there is serious stories of fairies, little creatures just like Tinkerbell, and I'm like, well, fuck, man. There's just about every different dimensional creature you can think of.
I was on TikTok. Don't judge me. And I was
judge.
I was looking, and there was like all these like kept getting these like pages of like people that were witches and stuff, and they kept talking like to thousands and thousands of people that are following them. They kept talking, and they were like mentioning something, and they're like, yeah, like this is how you communicate with them. And one of them was like, when they leave gifts, like this is the type of gift it'll be. And they're like, oh look, here's one, and it's like a broken bone or something like that, and they're just like saying it appeared out of nowhere. Anyway, I looked this thing up, and it like the name they were using, which I forgot what it was, but I looked it up, and it was fairies, and they're like saying that they're having these like.
There's fucking trolls. There's everything, man. And I'm thinking with my height, I might be one. I don't know.
You might. It's possible.
But I would say that there is a collective consensus that there is something else. But is it dimensional creatures?
Is it all one and the same?
Yeah, exactly. That's where I'm headed. Because I'm thinking maybe they're all the same dimensional creatures, and we just have different names for the ones that look different.
Yeah, I mean, but they could also look different and be different,
Well, yeah, other beings of whatever. I mean, another dimension crossing over.
But if it's multiple different aliens, like different races, different planets.
That's a lost info case file that I can't wait to get into.
And they're like, who are these?
Is alien races,
skin folk?
I've read about some alien races that I would be so stoked to see a golden triangle head, 9 foot tall, skinny as stick type dude. Like that would be epic.
Have you heard about the what's it called? It's something galaxy. There's like a bunch of people now, and there's a bunch of them like popping off on YouTube, and they say that they like meditate, and they say that they connect to these alien beings, and
the channelers.
Yeah, but there's a specific one that they're saying that they're connecting to, and there's a bunch of different people saying like the same. No, but I've heard of those too. It's like the Galactic Federation.
Oh yeah, it's kind of like a UN for the galaxy.
Yes.
Well, it's kind of like, I mean, you're looking at it, but I mean, I don't know, who knows? Maybe these people that wrote Star Wars had inside information, and we'll get into that too, because there is a lot of movies that hint towards all these things that maybe they just had a little bit more going on, because there's some Council of Nine that helped, I think, the guy write Star Trek. And he said he just sat in and listened to these people channel what they said were extraterrestrials, and he took all the info and made I don't know.
I mean, I believe it. It's like I've watched some of these YouTubers and stuff, and I'm just like, the fuck? Like, what? Like, some of the stuff they say and some of this. I mean, and a lot of it makes sense.
That's the hard part, isn't it?
It's weird.
Because if you have faith in religion, and then you go in and you fill in these blanks with these other stories of extraterrestrials, you're like, okay, well, the extraterrestrials makes more logical sense than any of the shit I just heard on religion.
Yeah.
And like, I'm sorry, I'm not hating on religion. If you're religious, just so you know, you can email me and talk shit to me, thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. But I'm not hating on religion itself. Like the people that are in it, they're obviously in it for a good thing. It's the organized part of it that has took it and manipulated it for its own purpose is what I don't like. Not people that believe and they're doing their part to find their God. That's completely understandable, acceptable, whatever you want to say. It's the organized part that is controlling how it runs and what it's manipulated and what it's done to this world. That's just to be clear on that.
He's saying fuck religion.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, I mean,
way to cover your ass, man.
Hey, I was raised Catholic, and I did do all the Sunday school, all that shit. I just at one time started venturing out to other religions, and my own church said, "Hey, that's against the rules." I'm like, "Why? What fucking rules? What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
I'm just trying to find other people's perspective, and they didn't like it. And I realized then that, oh, there's more to this. They don't want you to follow anybody else because your money will go to them if you leave their diocese. And I was like, this is a business, and if you look into it, it's a business that doesn't pay taxes. It's a scam. I mean,
I think it's
a big part of it.
Like, you know, even in the Bible, there's that verse that says, "Seek." I don't remember where it is exactly, but it says, "Seek me and you will find me." Like when you search with all your heart, or something like that. And I'm like, to me, anything I even see in the Bible, I'm like, well, if you're seeking with, you know, if you're truly seeking truth,
I think that there is truth in the Bible. So don't get me wrong on that. I think it's all mixed together, and they took parts they want to keep.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that, like, I find that verse interesting because just back to what you were saying about, you know, feeling sort of suppressed by certain religions and stuff. You know, I understand that feeling, you know, from growing up around evangelicals and whatnot. But you know, even in the Bible, it's telling you to seek it. And so to me, is like, if you are going in with an open heart and an open mind, and you're just saying, like, look, I'm just trying to figure it out because you guys clearly don't have all the answers either. And so I don't think that there is anything wrong with that. And I think that if someone tells you that there's something wrong with that, it's because they're trying to control you.
Well, I would agree, because if you think about it, and one of the verses in there, the truth will set you free, states that you should use your own conscience and mind that your creator gave you to seek the truth. And when you are seeking the truth, you're going to find that there's a lot of inconsistencies in religion. And if you're not, if you're not stuck to what somebody's telling you in one little neat, tight packaged box, you're going to find a ton of inconsistencies, and you're going to say, well, I can't really be put in this box anymore. I have to seek the truth. And even in the Bible, it says, seek the truth and the truth will set you free. And I've been way more free knowing that I'm not controlled by Catholicism now. I'm open to believe my God and however he is, treat other human beings with the same respect, even if they are Catholic. I don't give a shit what you are. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. But I will say that there's a lot of inconsistencies when you start going outside their defined path.
For sure. I agree. I mean, I think that there is a lot of good in, you know, the general beliefs of religion, but it's such a limited perspective to a big picture.
Well, and that'll be lost info on the Vatican, is that they've kept so much. They have a 58-mile vault. Like, what is in that? I can't even fathom that.
Yeah.
That to me, in my head, doesn't even make sense. That's like, you know, that's from here to, I mean, if I'm almost halfway to Chicago, you know, and I'm thinking, how can that be that big of a vault? What would you have in that thing?
There's, I think I told you about this. There's a guest that I plan on reaching out to that I would love to have on here at some point, but she has a YouTube channel, that everyone should check out. I think it's really great, but it's called God is Gray. And she really does a lot of research. She spent like 15 years researching this
50 Shades of the Gray God?
Yeah, exactly. 50 Shades of the Gray God. But yeah, exactly. That's even worse because it's like the little gray aliens or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, let's go into a lot of things.
It's a lot of that could go a lot of ways.
It could. Gray matter and everything for your brain. Wow, that does take a lot of roads.
Yeah, it does. But anyway, it's God is Gray, and she considers herself to, you know, she believes in Jesus, but she doesn't like call herself like a hardcore Christian or a Catholic or anything like that, and she doesn't she really has just researched like these are not one book. This is a bunch of letters from different people, and it's like she's just very straightforward about everything that actually took place when it came to the creation of what we know today as the Bible, and where that information came from and who actually wrote what books.
And that part is hard too, because you got to understand that even what they're saying is that some of the first books being wrote in the Bible was at least 40 years after Jesus died. I can't even remember last week.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, same thing with Genesis. Like most Catholics and Christians, and what is kind of put out there is that Moses wrote Genesis. That's what most people believe, and they don't actually.
And I found out his grandfather was Enoch.
Yes.
And yeah. I wasn't really I don't know if I ever knew that till recently, and I thought, wait,
or was it Moses?
Moses' grandfather was Enoch.
Moses' grandfather was Enoch, but not oh wait. Yeah,
honestly,
not Noah,
yeah.
not Noah. It wasn't Noah's.
I
think it was
shit.
Noah's.
Now,
yeah, I think it was. I think Enoch is Noah's.
Pound search it, because I might be wrong on that.
I think.
Don't quote me on that one. But I still didn't know that Enoch was the grandfather of either one of them. I thought Enoch was just a guy that, and that's another thing. That book was thrown out, but he talks about walking hand in hand with God, which that's the only person that had a first-hand account, not like a burning bush or, send down tablets from the sky, but a first-hand account with God, and we're taking that out of the equation, which seems weird to me.
For sure. No, I mean, I agree. I mean, but the Book of Enoch is its own episode too, because
Enoch plays into the pyramids too, which is, I think we got way off track.
Yeah.
But we'll do that from time to time. You just have to get used to it. If you don't like it, you can email us at thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. But that comes into play there. That I think it might have been John Hancock or Graham Hancock. John Hancock. Yeah. Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
But Graham Hancock talked about something that Enoch had straight direction to the building of the pyramids too. You have to go into that, pound search it. But it becomes like, man, how all this stuff, either people are really just trying to tie every bit of the lost info together, or that becomes a really weird story.
Yeah, I mean, the Book of Enoch definitely is fascinating, and I wonder oftentimes why it is kind of disconnected from whether it be history as a whole, or why just it's disconnected from specifically being included in the Bible and religion and all of that, because it's very possible that it is disconnected because of the information that it holds. And I think it's really fascinating if people actually take the time to go and read the Book of Enoch, because there's a lot of debate and fascination about that story specifically, because it is technically like a quote unquote like biblical text. So it's definitely something to go and research if you haven't read anything about the Book of Enoch or looked it up, because there's a lot.
Pound search it.
Yeah.
We're gonna say that a lot because this is, again, I like to call it a global discussion with everybody, because we're all just trying to essentially put the puzzle together. So this is collective. It's an effort together. So it's a global discussion to me. But that's why we'll say pound search it, because get involved. Look up some of the history yourself. We're privileged right now because we can do that. Most people are able to go do that. Just think, if the internet got wiped out tomorrow and there was no more network, we don't even have good libraries. So you're not going to be able to know a lot of this information.
And really, we're just hoping that some aliens out there hear our podcast and come, and they're
I'm going to put this on a different frequency and aim it to the sky.
Exactly. If they're going to be like, oh, you guys wanted us to come talk to you?
Well, then I'm going to have to change it to
explain to you what happened. We thought you enjoyed this.
Well, then I'm going to have to put a universal discussion if I aim it to the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
No longer a global discussion. A universal.
Like, we have a special guest. He's an actual alien.
He's a gray, but one of the good ones.
Yeah. he's gonna tell us what the meaning of life is.
Well, they say we had an Eben, so I was gonna call the guest Eben, but apparently he died in our custody in the United States Air Force. He was the one that was taken from Roswell. He was called Eben, and we'll get into that case file down the road. But it's kind of sad, really. And the guy that supposedly could connect with him, he was an empath, and he communicated with Eben. He completely broke down after Eben died because we basically just wouldn't let him go home. It's pretty messed up. Pretty messed up story. And that guy came forward and talked about it. I'll have to get the information when we get to that case file. But I thought, man, that's really sad because that's what we do. I mean, look at us fucking taking immigrants and putting them in cages. Think about what we do with an extraterrestrial.
We definitely, as humans, have this tendency to
be a shit fucking ass race of people. Like we just treat other people with such disregard if you're not us. Well, but who's us? We're a collective breed of people.
Yeah. So pyramids.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what we're talking about.
So the pyramids are pretty cool.
That's what we're talking about. All right. Well, you know what? Let's just break into. We'll just go on a couple facts about them because I think this is where some things come into play that you're just like, wait, that doesn't. How the fuck does that make sense?
Before we get just real quick, did you see that?
Okay,
video?
So we're not going to be talking about periods today.
No. About periods or pyramids?
Both.
But that's another topic for another day. Don't
more lost info. Okay. Yeah.
Don't search that.
That is more info to be had because there is some studies on that.
About men having periods?
Well, no, about like sororities and like they all like collectively like in sync with the same time frame. I'm like, how in the hell is that possible?
Oh yeah. I knew a lot of. I was in a fraternity in college. I knew a lot of sorority girls. I mean, I know girls like roommates, stuff like that. Like
there's some weird stuff on that too, and we are going to get into that because some ancient cultures used to drink menstrual blood because they said it gave them life. But anyway, we're going to get off that for now.
We should probably have a female guest on for that one. Just
honestly, I think that we are obligated to.
Yeah.
I'll get one. I will get a female.
I'll go out and buy a good guest for that.
Well, I can't. Yeah, I was gonna say because if we sit there and comment on that kind of topic without a female, I think it absolutely a lot of trouble and discredits us automatically because we didn't have female to conversate on their topic.
For sure, I agree. But what I was gonna say is, did you see this is still about pyramids? So what I was gonna say,
but pyramids.
Yes, and why I jumped in was because it is about pyramids.
Exactly.
But did you see that video just a couple weeks ago of the kid that climbed the pyramid?
I did. There's a girl that just did it too.
What?
I think it's because they know that they can get so many views that they're willing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can bribe the Egyptian police with pretty much anything, because that's basically what the girl said. Was she spent a day? The kid I think he spent 5, but the girl had a whole team of people, and they were distracted. This is really fucked up. Is that she was recording before they went, and she had two really good looking friends that were going to be distracting the guards. So it was a whole entire plot.
Wow.
And then at the end, they were waiting for her to get out of jail, and they said all we had to do was throw some coin at the situation and get her out. So
I don't know though. I wouldn't risk it. I mean, it's like
I would in a second.
I mean, look at
only that. Because I'm not.
It's like going to North Korea and knocking off a post.
Oh no, I won't do that. No, not in a dictatorship and whatever else, but in a neutral country. Even though it's still kind of disgraceful and wrong.
You don't know who you're gonna piss off.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine standing at the top of and this is another great fact, is it is the last standing of the 7 world wonders in the ancient world. So to stand at the top of that would be magnificent. It would be something.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm not saying
it's kind of disgraceful though.
I'm not saying it wouldn't be extraordinary, and I think it is really cool,
disgracing the monument, and it's kind of disrespectful to what it is in the sense that you're willing to just say, screw everybody else, I'm going to climb it.
Yeah, and especially because, when you're just doing it for views.
I mean, I was saying
I'd have more respect for someone that did it that didn't film it.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say I would do it for the experience, and the jail time wouldn't matter. But I don't know that I would want to do that and film it just because how disrespectful that comes across.
Yeah.
I'd want to do it and sit there and meditate at the top for my own personal wow, I'm at the top of the last 7 wonders of the world. So that'd be the only reason really, but I still probably wouldn't do it, even though I say just because I feel that it's just disrespecting the whole entire serenity of what it is. Like, it's an amazing feat, what they accomplished or who accomplished or if they had help or how it really came about. Like it's still not explained. And I don't think that we will get an explanation on how it was actually done unless the people that maybe helped came back and said, hey, this is how we helped you do it.
Or someone time travels.
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's true because that's another topic we're going to cover about a John Teeter, Pound Search It. That guy claims that we will have time travel by 2028.
Oh, shoot. That's crazy.
That's not that far away.
Yeah, that's not far away.
Like, that would be interesting. And he says that basically it is private. Well, imagine that. It's in a private business industry and that you can only observe. So they basically take you on like jetliners that can take you back and observe that time period, but you can't interact. And then they say the only way that you can interact is to pay a large fee. Well, this isn't John Teeter. This is somebody else, but says that you pay a large fee and you can go back 24 hours to fix a major occurrence. So like if your kid died on a car accident, whatever else. And then and they say you have to pay a very large fee to be able to go back 24 hours so that you don't interrupt the timeline as much.
Wow.
Yeah, that one, that kind of blew my mind. I thought that's interesting as hell to think about.
Yeah, that'll
blow your mind. It did. Because I was like, what the fuck? That's crazy. Okay, so let's go into some facts on
I got 2 things I would change.
The pyramids. So let's just go on the size and the craziness of the statistics on just its mass and that kind of part of it. Basically, it started as a paved area of 6 football fields, almost 13 acres on its base level, which is already like, I don't know, that to me is crazy for a very primitive race to accomplish. And that doesn't even begin to touch on anything, but it's 2.3 million stones. So, I mean, and some of these stones are ranging from, maybe 5, 10, 15, but all the way up to 50 tons a stone. And to even think that you're moving that to a height of, I think it's 413 feet tall. It's like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And they were saying that they move these blocks, and there is some kind of hieroglyph that shows a sled, and maybe like the leader of this workforce pouring water in front of the sled to move these. But that doesn't take into account uphill or up a ramp, or that just means moving it through the sand. We're talking 50 fucking tons, like, and so the initial report is saying that 20,000 people did this, or I don't know, 100,000 people did this in 20 years. And that would mean at that rate that a block would have to be set. And these are all the way up to 50 tons, mind you. A block would have to be set every 2.5 minutes or 5 minutes at the tops. And it's like, so does that 20 years count the time that they brought the block from up to 500 miles away? Does that take into account the cutting of that block to the precision that it was at? Or is that...
And not just that, but like, why? Like, why the shape? Why why built it that way? Like, why that size blocks?
Well, just think if it was... Let's just go past what they say. Let's say it was 100 years. And let's say it's, 3 generations of your family that are building this thing. Like that's your whole entire life is to construct this bastard And even at 100 years, you're still setting these blocks so fast that you would be, I mean, basically you're going to cut your lifetime. Well, first of all, you don't have the right medical attention that we know of or anything else. So you're basically spending a very short time to exert yourself to make this structure for who? Or for a coffin for somebody else? Like, no, I can't buy into that. I can't buy into that because it just seems so crazy, even in 20 years, if it was just your lifetime.
Yeah, that all of these people would even agree. But here's the thing, is even if some people were enslaved, that amount of people, think of how many guards and people.
Yeah, exactly.
You would have to have more of them to control that
than
amount
the
of
workers.
People. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I thought. Like, eventually you're just going to be like, dude, I'm not going to pull these blocks no more on this sled. There ain't no
exactly.
way.
Exactly. If you
I'm going to give it 5 years for me. Like, I'm a hard worker, but I usually work hard for an outcome. But I'm not going to work that hard for somebody's tomb.
Yeah.
You know, and like 10 years, I'm going to be like, all right, man, my back's broke. My legs are
what's the point? What's the point of
my knees are shot. I have arthritis. Like, dude, I'm not pulling this rope no more.
I don't even think you would want to live if you would just be like, take me out. But obviously enough people still did whatever that they did if they did it.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, and I think there might have been a collective, and honestly, like, beings they're resilient, and they will get a job done when they're really set on it.
But you have to be like inspired to do that. I don't really think that I could.
You could be inspired if there was ancient knowledge in it and there was a reason. Now, like you were saying, on the other cultures that believed so much in the afterlife.
Yeah.
There is a huge part of the pyramids that say it was more for the death of, not just, I don't think it was just the pharaohs, but I think it was because they have holes in the pyramid, channels that go diagonal that line up with Orion's belt. Now all the pyramids line up with Orion's belt. So that brings me back to another point. This guy, this John Anthony West, he had said that it's slightly off from Orion's belt now, but the only other time that it would have been directly in line based on the Earth's wobble was 12,000 years ago and 25,000 years ago, because each sequence just changes that wobble just enough to line it up. So basically, he was trying to make the point that it could be as far back as 25,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Because that was when those pyramids would have been absolutely on Orion's belt, not just facing the direction, but absolutely.
And whoever this Orion dude is needs to come on down here with his belt and explain himself.
Yeah, well, he's got Batman's belt, dude. It's got everything on it, man. It's got everything going on because, well, in the Egyptian, and this is the thing, the Egyptian culture said this, and then that Graham Hancock talks about other. I think there was a tribe in the Amazon and another one that all have this exact same account of how they viewed the afterlife, which is bizarre because this already lines up, and there's a chamber that shoots to the Orion's belt. But basically, in all of their collective talk about the afterlife is that the soul gets transported to Orion's belt. And then in Orion's belt, they sit on that star system for the time to transition into the Milky Way. They ride the river of life, which is the Milky Way, and it goes through all kinds of tribulations and difficulties to get to the final destination of the afterlife. So,
wow,
whatever understanding that all these cultures had was all collective, that you jump to Orion's belt, transfer to the river of life, the Milky Way, or the river of death, or whatever.
Yeah.
And you go through all these hard times and troubles to get to the final destination of the afterlife. So they had a very good understanding of something on the afterlife. Now, I would have to say I don't think there's proof, but I would say that DMT takes a role in this, or ayahuasca, or something of the altered consciousness to be able to understand what is in the afterlife. Because,
whoa, I was gonna say, I just listened to someone else's like near-death experience. This woman who was dead for like 20 minutes or something like that, and before she came back, and she was saying that when she went to quote unquote heaven, that it was literally on another planet, like that she went and like traveled through her soul traveled through space and went to another planet. And I was like, well,
that's what I think is the light, a direction, you know? Because like you always hear go towards the light, but is that a direction of a star, or is it tunnel vision in where you're a direction? Not like go towards the light and then once you hit the light, you're there. Like,
because if everything is alive, like how we're talking about, even with plants and stuff, that they really can feel things. I mean, I'm curious, like, what if the stars themselves, the gases that are the stars, like, are they alive in their own sense as well? And we're just.
I would have to say, there's a lot of things, like, I don't know. There's so many pages on Facebook and whatever else that, like, I think there's one that's called Knowledge. There's another one, The Mind Unleashed, which if you haven't seen that, they have a lot of good articles. But when you start seeing these pictures from Hubble and shit, and then you take it into like art, the way they photograph the mind and the cells in the mind, it's so similar that the theory is that the whole universe has its own consciousness. And I'm going to have to say that I'm going to have to believe it, because if you go from a cell, the way a cell looks, to the bigger part, it all connects and it all goes into looking very similar. Are we just not a small cell on a bigger picture? And that bigger picture is a small cell on a bigger picture. And then you go into the multi-universe and the infinity. And I'd have to say it has to collectively keep going if everything's infinity. And
we're
the universe,
all just part of the same.
Yeah, I just like, I don't know. Joe Rogan has the Podfather, as I call him. He has a stand-up. One of his first ones talks about humans being, like a virus on the planet. If you think about,
inspiring.
Well, the thing is, it's funny as shit. But if you think about it in the context that he's saying, you kind of think like, well, that makes a lot of sense. It's kind of hard to be like, oh, that doesn't make any sense. It makes a lot of sense.
I have thought about that.
And he just makes a way to make it funny. But
I also just think about how many, diseases and viruses and stuff like that, like humans have experienced, and I'm like, I mean, something's trying to take us out. Like,
well, damn, that was the story that I wanted to tell. We're gonna do story time. We might give it a better title at the future case files, but we're gonna do a story time at the end. We're gonna take stories from all over the world, people's personal stories. If you want to write one to us, thelostinfopodcast at gmail.com. You don't have to use your name. You can tell us what you want to use, or if you want to put in a name, or just say no name at all. But give us your stories, because we're going to have a story time, because I think that gives us a better view of firsthand accounts.
I was going to say, personally, I want to hear your story. If anyone vacationed at Bohemia Grove, I want to know what that summer vacation was like.
Oh, well, I want to know all your stories, but I am going to be with Duncan on this one. Is that I definitely want to hear about Bohemian Grove. If you've ever been there, if you were ever a waiter, a server, a cleaner up there, if you had to clean Bush Jr.'s jizz off of everything that's there, I want to hear about those stories.
Same. Sorry, go ahead, though. I interrupted you.
No. I interrupt you all the time. We're going to be doing that. But, that's the thing, is that when we're not face-to-face, it's going to happen. We're going to cross over. But if you'd like to criticize us on that, it's the thelostinfopodcast at gmail.com. I know there's haters, and you're going to love to email, and I'll read them, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
And I'll print them out. I'll take a big old piss on them.
Well, that's the thing, is that this is a global discussion. Doesn't mean we can't piss on your discussion if it's negative. But
I'd love to read it.
Hey, if you say it in a positive way, I won't shit on you. But if you come at me hater style, we're gonna print it off and piss on it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take a shit on it. He'll piss on it. Well, no, he'll piss on it and then mail it to Illinois, and then I'll shit on it.
That's right.
And then we'll take a picture of it and send it back to you.
And email it back to you.
Exactly. So that you can know how we feel about negativity, because this is a global discussion.
Because we are a giant consciousness, and we don't need your bad vibes.
Exactly. Don't fuck us up with your bad vibes, man. Some bullshit. We're trying to do is relate lost info and find the puzzle.
Yeah.
So stop being a dickhole.
I do. I mean, I truly do believe that we not to get off topic again, but
we do that a lot, and we will. So if you don't like it, you can email us at thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. All right.
But we are all like a part of the same consciousness, and so I think it is crazy to me just the amount of things that we face and even talk about and stuff. It's like we have to be able to have those open discussions. We have to be able to say things that are like gonna be at least maybe slightly offensive to some people, because I believe that if we are ever going to get to quote unquote what the truth is, we gotta be able to say some, I'm not saying trying to be offensive, but because
it's going to be offensive. Well, the thing is, you also got to look at the world that we live in. People are offended. So go ahead and continue with that. But you're never going to please everybody. And we know that some people are going to be offended by the things we say, but it's not that we're trying to attack you, because I'm going to shit on Republicans. I'm going to shit on Democrats. I'm going to shit on Christians. I'm going to shit on Muslims. We know that the good people have good intentions. Collectively, we're going to have to shit on you, because humans are humans and we do shitty things. And all we're trying to do is collectively get the info, which will ultimately shit on something you believe in.
Yeah, somebody, unless you're really open-minded, we're going to offend at least one person from every race, religion.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we'll make sure, if you contact us, thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. If you contact us and say, well, you never said anything about them, we'll make sure we find a way to shit on them too.
Yeah, we are all about equality shooting.
Yeah, exactly. And the people that are in it for the lightheartedness and the fun and the discussion, well, more props to you. But the people that take offense to every fucking thing, you're going to get shit on. But you're going to come back, because you're going to like the fact that we shit on everybody. For sure.
And I mean, I truly, and I know the same is for you as well. I mean, I truly love everybody. I realize I'm like, man, like I love the haters. Knowledge, for sure.
They make it interesting.
They're trying to figure it out too in their own way. And a lot of people who get really, really upset about stuff, it's just simply because they are unwilling to see a different perspective.
Oh, that's absolutely what it is.
They just don't want to like challenge their ego.
They're not willing to come outside that tightly little package box.
For sure, because they want to believe what they want to believe. But that's not where progress.
Now you're going to listen to us about these pyramids because the aliens fucking did it, and you're going to believe it because I told you it.
Exactly.
Just kidding. But
he's right.
And that's the thing is, like, when you have an open discussion, you don't have to believe anything that I'm telling you. All you have to do is search it, and then when you have enough information in your own bank, then you sift through it, and then you come up with your own hypothesis on how that fucking plays out in your head. The only thing that we're doing is bringing you the information.
Yeah, and we want to have the discussions, and we want you to be part of it.
And I'm gonna beat this horse, but if you want to be a part of that discussion, thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com.
That's right.
Exactly. So we'll get back into some of these statistics. Pyramids, by the way. So the crazy thing is, like, a lot of people think that these pyramids are four-sided. They're not. They actually have indents in each side. We didn't know that until we could view them from above, but they're 8-sided. And that is a pretty interesting thing because they're very precisely 8-sided, cut right down the middle of each slope. And the slopes, now, when you get into some of these statistics, I will say I'm a little thrown off by some of them, because I think if you play with numbers enough and you divide it by this, add it by this, do this and this,
anything's possible.
You can find them numbers. But with that being said, some of this is directly related to every mathematics that we need, being that the King's Chamber is the golden ratio, pi is equivalent. So the researchers proposed the idea of pi might be incorporated in the design of the Great Pyramid. And it's Khufu, by the way, is the Great Pyramid of Giza, is the one we're basically...
Would you call me?
Yeah, you Khufu. But yeah, what we're referring to is the Great Pyramid, and that one being the Pyramid of Khufu, the one that they say he was buried in, which never found a body. Obviously, found no bodies in him. But the guy John Taylor found.
He went up to Orion's belt.
Yeah, he went to Orion's belt. He found it out. His name's John Taylor. Pound search it. But he discovered that if one divides the perimeter of the pyramid by its height, the result values is equal to 2 pi. Obviously, there's a lot of other things. It's aligned with true north. It basically, I think, is 3/60th of a degree off from true north, only because the poles have changed since the time of what they say would be the pyramids.
It's aligned with the equator too, right?
Well, that is the mass. So the mass of where I wrote that down, but the mass of the planet is directly okay. So this is another thing. There was easier ways to find, I want to say longitude, the horizontals, because of sunsets and sunrises. Now, longitudes, the horizontals, and that could be backwards. I'm not even sure at the point, but
one of the lines going
the longitude
ways.
and latitude, but the longitude were not discovered till way after. But let's just say that there was no way to travel the planet at all. The mass of the planet is discovered on the intersecting longitude and latitude is where the Great Pyramid of Giza was formed. Right on the intersecting lines of the longest longitude and the longest latitude, which equals the mass of the planet. And again, the precision and why would you even do that? Why would you
what's the point?
Why would you go through all that effort if it didn't have a significant value?
Yeah.
It really doesn't make any sense.
It's like a mile marker for the aliens.
Right. And so let's just say that you were just building this for a tomb. Like, how fucking weird and bored would you have to be to spend, a couple lifetimes of the people that worked for you and go through all this precision for a tomb? It seems.
Yeah, but what goes back to, we believe that, or a lot of people believe, a lot of scientists believe that information was not even around at that time. That so much of the how they figured that stuff out is one of the biggest questions when it comes to the pyramids and then being placed where they're at, etc. Because it's this sort of complex issue that we don't have all the answers to, but there's so many bizarre connections with the stars and their alignment with everything and all of that. And it's definitely something to look into, because we don't know how they knew that information, because we like to believe that they were not as educated and they weren't as civilized or what have you. And it's like, but they obviously figured, they were smart enough to figure out this crap somehow. So,
and that's the thing, is like that's ancient knowledge or intervention of knowledge. Like, it's just there's no two ways that it was just like, okay, we had really, and I've listened to some podcasts and I've listened to some things on the pyramids, and this one guy, I don't even remember what it is, and I wouldn't give him a shout out even if I knew. He literally shit on the precision of everything and was like, well, I will tell you this: people just don't understand that human beings have the will to get things done, and the precision was a coincidence, and of all the different precisions, and it was just made out of sheer will. And I'm like,
you're like, that makes
how do you really sense. How do you I honestly, and I'm not gonna hate on you to the fullest if you believe that, but do you really believe that? Like,
when there's like 1,000 things pointing to something, you can't just say that something does not exist.
And I'm not even saying I know what that something is.
No, it's just like, obviously this was not an accident.
Right.
Like, when there's so many things
it's not like,
pointing.
Hey, let's build a building here, and it just so happens to be true north, all the mathematics of this world that we'd need if another race got erased, and then and we came back and wanted to build civilization. We took all the mathematics from this building. It would help us rebuild a civilization. Like, that seems pretty direct and specific on why they did it. it is proven to be in the accuracy within 1/50th of an inch, which even in all of our modern day technology, everything we have, we could not recreate that if we wanted to, which is again, if you think that these humans were just really determined to build this big structure and just throw stones on top of stones, no fucking way. Because we can't even build a house within 1/50th of an inch. Well, not that I know of, not any contractors that I know. Maybe.
Yeah,
Really...
I mean, either way, it was just, it's so much further advanced than what we
give it credit for.
Yeah, and we're trying to act like, I mean, we always want to think that we know more than we do. We want to always be like thinking that we're progressing and thinking that we're further along, although we may not be.
Right. And another thing is we also have to look at, when you look at pictures of the pyramids, they're magnificent, right? They do take your breath away. I can only imagine going there. And honestly, if you join our Patreon, we will include giveaways as this progresses to our fans. So we hope to do one once a month. We hope to get to a point to where you guys are all in this global discussion with us. You could chime in, we do the work, we bring in this information, pound search it with us. To, let's just say one of you are very interested in going to the pyramids, just like I am, and I'm sure just like Duncan, that we could take the giveaway of maybe 1 month a year or whatever, or depending on where we're at, and take one of our fans to the pyramids and go with you guys and do a live episode and get a firsthand account what it feels like to be in the presence of these megalithic structures. I think it would be my privilege to be able to do that to our fans. Yeah. And you would make my life dreams come true, because,
and maybe we could all find a mummy together and just bring it back. That's what I was going to say earlier. Apparently the King Tut tour, whatever, that came through LA recently, like this time last year, actually, that I went to, it was cool because I guess it's the last time that it's going to tour, because they're opening up. Yeah, they're opening up a museum in Cairo that is going to be all of King Tut's stuff all together.
So this is a thing also that I kind of looking through some of this, and then talking about the people that have climbed it. The security seems kind of laxed watching this close, but then when you get into some of the serious shit, I don't know if people know this, but there is all kinds of chambers throughout these pyramids. It's not like all open on the inside, and you can kind of look at the diagrams, but there is a tunnel that goes down below the pyramids, and everything that's been found down below the pyramids is not given to the public. It is very heavily secured and guarded. And there's a guy, and I'm sure everybody knows him. I don't want to comment on his age, but I hope that we get him on our show in time. I'll just say that. But David Icke was also ridiculed and shit on for all his beliefs, which are now connecting dots like no other in our current time. David Icke is, he's a gem. He's a gem of a dude, and he's put in the hard work. He is selling books like mad now, and he is on the higher side of the scale, but he deserves it because he literally was discredited, ridiculed, shit on, everything. I mean, there was even an interview when he first wrote his first book that, and I don't remember what talk show it was, they literally fucking made fun of him while he was on the show.
Oh.
And it was like, damn. And now they're all eating their words because this dude's, connection, and he does go into some crazy things. I will say it's hard for a lot of people to bite off that there's a reptilian force that is overseeing the world, and that's where he goes. Like, eventually, that's where it ends up.
That's a tough one to swallow.
But that's where it ends up. But all of the stuff prior to that, like from the, I think, late 70s through the 80s, he was making these connections and saying he was being channeled, and everybody was like, fuck you, you're full of shit, you're a crazy asshole. And he's, as of now, not so crazy because a lot of those connections are being made.
Well, I mean, it is weird. Like, there's, there are mediums that say they talk to the dead and stuff, and they'll help the police like solve crimes. Like, not all of them are legit, but there are a couple that have done some like crazy stuff, and you're like, they're talking to somebody.
This dude, okay, so don't quote me on this. You're gonna have to pound search it, but he did work for the BBC, I believe, as a broadcaster. And when he was let go, and I'm guessing because he didn't fall into all their pedophilia shit they were doing at the time and all that other crazy shit that they weren't outing people on. But when he was let go, it was like 2 years after that. He wrote like 7 books. And the amount of, if he wasn't studying all this prior to him being let go and not being channeled, the amount of information that he puts in these books that are now connected and pretty much filling in all kinds of voids, it would be such a huge overtaking that there's no way you could get that much information in that short of time and make these books. Anyway, you got to look him up and look way on his past stuff that he basically predicted to now being proven on some of it, not all of it, but search it. But David Icke, anyway, he has pictures, and he, in the beginning, when he visited the Great Pyramid of Giza, he got to go into the lower levels. There is a lower chamber that goes down to, he claims that there's a large lake with a sarcophagus that floats in the middle of this lake.
Where did he get this information?
He saw it firsthand with his own eyes. But he was let in. This was back in the 80s or early 90s. But he was given the privilege to go down there, and he films it. Suppose he has pictures of it.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah. This one blew me away too. And I looked at some of the pictures. I don't know if they're his or he says they're in his books on his website or something of what he claims. But he said he saw it with his own eyes, and there's a massive lake underneath, and it's not underneath the pyramid. It's like right off to the side. But the hallway that goes down to the lower levels of these chambers opens up into this underground lake that has a sarcophagus that's in the middle of this lake. And the reasoning is still, I didn't even get to listen to the whole thing that he said. I don't know that he even said that there was a reason for it. It does get into very specific things that he said he saw with his own eyes, firsthand account. And he is one of the best researchers of a lot of things. Ancient culture, ancient civilizations, structures, things that all connect, religions. He does. If I took everything that I researched and didn't know this guy and I didn't hear his story or some of the other guys that make their theory, it'd be like me spending my whole life finding a way to make a relation between everything I've studied, from structures to civilizations to Illuminati to rulers of the universe, reptilian. I mean, it's essentially he makes connections to everything, but with a lot of solid, like pretty damn good connection, because I can't disprove you.
Yeah. Because
there's a lot of proofs within his story, and then people get thrown off when he eventually comes to the reptilian overlords. I think they're called Archons. If we think about the way the world was discovered or is built on is fear, basically these Archons feed on your fear, which is, so it's like our fear is their food, which is, it's mind blowing to say the least. But when you go down the path,
it kind of makes sense.
It is, but it will only because either you're connecting the dots or we are a fear-based society, and we always have been. And it just makes sense to make that connection. I don't know. I really, actually, I hope that we have him as a guest. I'll grill him for the fans as far as, but he's a very open book, man. You can go to his conferences, and he has conferences where he'll talk for 7 fucking hours straight. And I think longer than that. No notes. Like, this dude just goes, man. He's impressive to even listen to, because if you didn't believe it with the sincerity that he does, there's no way you could have the passion and whatever to do conferences and sell out stadiums to do what he's doing. Because it's like I've listened to a 7-hour series of him once, and I was like, at the end of it, I thought I was coming down off a high of knowledge. I was like, or somebody's knowledge, somebody's belief. I thought, what in the fuck just happened? Like, my mind was fried. I would start to think back on some of the things he said 6 hours ago, and I
like stuff like that. I like listening to stuff like that.
I do too.
But at the same time, sometimes I'm like, man,
it's a lot.
Depressing.
One of the greatest philosophers, Aristotle, he has a saying, and it really just comes down to that. You can take all the information you want, and you can try to weed through it, but Aristotle, he had said, it's the mark of educated mind to entertain the thought without accepting it. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because I'll listen to anybody's rigmarole and rants all the way through. And then I'll weed through what I've connected in the past and, again, put this puzzle of lost information together for myself. You are taking in knowledge that you might consider bullshit, but you're listening to it because that is the very premise of a discussion is that you listen and then you make your conclusion.
I agree. And who knows? He could be totally right. I mean,
yeah, honestly,
we don't know.
You don't have to listen to the 7 hours. Just go into some of the shit that he says and listen to, let's just say 30 minutes of not the crazier side, but the beginning side of mankind and the relation to religion.
Yeah, don't start with the lizard people.
Yeah, don't start with the reptilians, but the gap linked together so tight that it's like, damn, that's good, man. Either you're a really clever fictional writer and taking actual information and fitting it together so well. We need a title for the story segment because you're gonna love this. We're not gonna take a lot of the time in our things, but at the end, we'll always have a good, quick, short story of paranormal, extraterrestrial, abduction, dimensions, portals. Hey, and by the way, if you come back to our podcast because you believe that we are really just trying to have a global discussion with you and not just trying to feed you full of shit, when you come on the podcast, get a couple beers, take a couple puffs, come on, have an open mind, and let's just enjoy the conversation of lost info.
Yeah, just
because I've been cracking.
Do some.
Yeah, well, whatever you want to do, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
do some fucking peyote, man. Do some fucking ayahuasca. Do some DMT.
Yeah, just drop some DMT and listen to us.
Do some acid and like definitely email us. And honestly, when we get on to more of a live stream, if you're on acid, fucking drop us a live comment so we can talk to you while you're fucking tripping balls.
We'll keep the vibes good, hopefully, for that.
Yeah,
one.
No, as long as you're positive. But anyway, we're gonna try to interact with our fans as much as possible. We'll try to answer every email, our Twitter, our Instagram. We're still trying to create all that. Obviously, we have to do a whole new social media for the Lost Info. And honestly, when you're starting from scratch, it is a mess to not just be on your personal, but for us, for the Lost Info. So it is a lot of work. But we will try to respond to everything that you guys have as long as it's not negative and hate-filled.
No hate.
There's no reason for that. You can definitely make jokes about us, with us, whatever, shit on us a little. But if you're having fun in the manner, so be it. And if you're not, we'll still probably read them and then talk shit about you. So.
Oh yeah, you can talk. I mean, people can talk shit. I don't care.
We'll print it out, piss on it, shit on it, and send it back to you. Yeah. But yeah, the thing is, it's an open discussion, man. We're trying to be all in this together, I want to do this because I've been passionate about a lot of things. A lot of people have inspired me, and when I met Duncan, I thought he's the perfect guy to do this with. Let's make a community that starts uncovering lost info. And honestly, if we can gather this Patreon, we can keep this ad free and we can discover it together. And I will use your contributions to grow the pod and go on adventures where we can get live episodes right there and then.
Storm Area 51.
Fuck yeah. I'll make a promise. I will go and search a remote viewer with if we can make this pod big, I will pay a remote viewer to consciously go into Area 51 and tell you what's in there. Now that is storming Area 51 because, and I will say this is going to be a whole nother topic on remote viewing, but that was apparently how all of CIA spies worked. Everything else, finding Russian intelligence, was remote viewing, going into these places that were not possible to go into, and they were very accurate on what they found. So, So if I could find an actual, and I will test them. So mind you that too. If I find a remote viewer, and if you are a remote viewer, you can also contact me at the Lost Info Podcast, and I will pay you when we grow to remote view us in some information that we want. And I will start you out with tests of my own information. If you can find it within the envelope on, and the way I know remote viewing works, you put a code outside the envelope, whatever's in it sealed, and you can do it from wherever and find what's in that envelope. If you prove to me that that's possible, I will send you on some missions.
Yeah, that's fascinating. If it actually worked, hopefully the government doesn't come after us.
I'll tell you this. So,
oh shit.
Well, let's go like this. So, if you email me and tell me you're a remote viewer, Duncan is my West Coast correspondent. I will have him write a story or a picture or do whatever, put it in his own envelope, send me the logo outside the envelope or the code number of what that on the outside of the envelope, and I won't even know it. I will translate that information to the remote viewer. If you can tell me what's in that envelope and tell Duncan what's in that envelope, we will hire you for some more crazier missions in the Vatican.
Oh yeah, the Vatican for sure. Yeah,
Vatican for sure. That 58-mile vault intrigues me like no other, man. What would you hide in 58 miles of vault? I don't know, but
and the pyramid and jump inside.
Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about.
You can go over there and see what's in there.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can go into the lower levels that aren't privy to the public anymore, and see if there's a lake in there. Because like with the sarcophagus, these sarcophagus, there's one that is in. I think it's. I don't want to. Maybe it is the King's Chamber, but the King's Chamber has a sarcophagus, a box, a granite, one solid stone that isn't capable of going through any opening on the pyramid, which means that either ancient technology put it in there or they built the pyramids around one fucking piece of block, which it also makes you think, well, what the hell? Either way you look at that, that's just weird for a tomb.
It's all weird.
It is all weird. And so that's another thing is that I think and there is a lot of other chambers, and that David Icke says that there's other chambers that have been blocked off for other reasons. They say the harmonics in it can transcend a conscious to other places. But above the King's Chamber, there is, well, I'll call them joists, but pillars that are horizontal, basically like floor joists, if you want to think about it in building terms, or 70 tons across in a line that had to be raised 350 feet off the ground, not including this ramp theory with bronze chisels and primitive knowledge.
Definitely not.
This is another interesting fact that I have that I really liked because I didn't know this either. There exist 3 swivel doors in the Pyramid of Giza. One of the enormous doors is 20-ton swivel door, and it's so well balanced.
Who is going in there?
Well, yeah, and this swivel door. So technology at the time of this, with a 20-ton piece of rock, is so crazy to think about. But this was so well balanced that you could push it open with one hand, and when it was closed, it fit so tight that it blended in with the walls, and you couldn't even know that it was a door.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's 3 of these. I don't know if they all weighed 20 tons, but I'm guessing the biggest one did. But they all were that easy to open, so that well balanced. And when they closed, you couldn't even tell there was a door, is how good they blended in with the wall. Couldn't even fit a credit card through the gaps. That I didn't know until looking this up, and I thought even that is phenomenal for this hypothetical 4,500 years ago.
No joke. I would definitely go there.
Love to take a guest from our show and do a live episode over there with us, get some film, get some actual firsthand accounts from some of the locals that have family or ancient stories passed down.
Yeah.
Any of those things from people that are there, not just researchers like you and me and whatever else, but people that have family that have been there, that stories passed down.
I tried to ask King Tut, but he was pretty quiet.
So that again, the sarcophagus, that coffin thing, whatever, one block, how that's even in there, that also blows my mind. Like, how in the hell do you have something that can't fit through any of the spaces, build the whole thing around one thing? It just, I think that they're obviously being that no information from the bottom levels of the pyramid are released, is they're hiding tons of secrets that we haven't even found yet. The Sphinx has more levels and rooms within it and below it than they say the pyramid itself. So, and that was even older. So that also becomes a ton of questions, just too many to even really just start knocking down.
Yeah, and it's like, what really even is the Sphinx? Like, I mean, is it a cat? Like,
Well, and that's the thing is they put a man's face on it, but they said at one time it was the face of a cat and it was changed and altered, but the bottom wasn't altered because that has the erosion from water. And then I mean, there's all kinds of theories. There's
I'm gonna be pissed if cats are actually like,
well,
the aliens.
yeah, they said that Napoleon blew the nose off it with his cannons as another theory, but they said in the time frame that has been disproven. Ancient writings say that it was there before Napoleon, and that
Wow.
or after Napoleon, and the nose was still on it. So I don't know. There's a lot of that weird. We didn't really touch on the fact that the ley lines. So there's an energy grid that goes through around this planet, and they intersect with all of these sites that we have no idea what's going on.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Easter Island has Machu Picchu.
I think some of the Mayans. Yeah.
The Mayans temples, yes, Stonehenge. So like it goes throughout the world, and honestly, which is another thing recently, the Georgia Guidestones, the guy whoever bought that, he's anonymous, by the way. He bought this property, and a ley line goes right through where the Georgia Guidestones were built to, which is a more recent structure that will last the test of time as long as they are massive. And the guy that built them died right after, coincidentally. We'll have to get into that. But it is also on a ley line, which they say that the pyramids absolutely are, which is an energy field. Some of the theories on them, I mean, these structures weigh 6 million tons. So, I mean, if you think about that, and so the 6 million tons, if you multiply, and this again, the number sequences and play on numbers, if you multiply it by 10 to the 8th, gives a reasonable estimate of the world's mass. Again, the 10th to the 8th, I don't know. I'm not that great at math, and I would say that you're playing with numbers at that point. But the fact that it could even work out seems a little strange.
Definitely.
There's just a lot of questions, and there's not a lot of answers. The coincidences in that all these mathematics add up. And I don't know if I've said this, but a rule of 3 in the Lost Info podcast. So we go on 3 on everything. Deaths come in 3, all this other shit with 3, and the Tesla, the answers of the universe, 3, 6, and 9. I'm gonna go with, on the Lost Info, the rule of 3. If there's 3 large coincidences in one event, it no longer is a coincidence. It's a discussion that needs to be had. So that's my rule, but I'm going with it because there is coincidences in the world, maybe. And I don't know if I completely believe it, but maybe. Maybe just like ran into somebody strangely. But maybe you were supposed to meet them. I don't know. But if there's 3 very large coincidences in one event, that means that there's more to that story than just a coincidence. It's now a discussion that needs to be had.
Agreed with that.
So I don't know if we said that in some of our other episodes, but hopefully when we get more advanced in our podcast, some kind of indication, and then that
just
would
like
be
that.
Yeah, well, maybe a different sound, but that will indicate we're about to hit on a coincidence that's major. And so we're just basically trying to mind control you, like MK Ultra. So when you hear it, you automatically think, oh, this is an important topic.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it could be, we could say anything after a while.
Yeah, and then when we like, ding, you're just gonna listen.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever tone we come up with. I don't think the ding, because I'm pretty annoyed by it myself already, but it will be something that will indicate.
I hope it's not that.
I did it twice and I'm over it. So
it's just gonna be Jake.
I'm already over the 2 times I did it. But yeah, we will have a tone that will indicate a major intersection that is quote unquote coincidence. I don't know if I even believe in coincidence in general, but when there's three major ones in one event, which some events have like 20, it's no longer a coincidence at all, or even a discussion of a coincidence. It's a discussion that needs to be had. There's a guy and I don't remember his name. You'll have to search him, but he's doing extensive research on the Bosnian pyramids, and he says they're way more advanced and precise than the Great Pyramid.
Wow.
And I listened to one of, I think he might have been on another podcast, but there's just things you can't refute what he's found, and he's doing great work. He is documenting it all. He's filming it all. He's doing the right work, and I can't think of his name, and I didn't write it down, but he claims the Bosnian pyramids are even more accurate and precise than the ones in Egypt, which is hard for me to believe. But the things that he puts forward are some compelling and interesting lost info. So that guy you might want to look into. Google search the Antarctica pyramids. They're talking 3 miles of ice.
And the wall.
The ice wall, yeah. But this is the thing. They're talking about these pyramids are peeking out of 1, 2, 3 miles of ice.
Oh.
So how fucking massive could those bastards be?
Yeah, if that I didn't even know that. If those exist,
so Antarctica has a coverage in areas that are miles deep. And then they're saying that when they're finding these structures that they're so precise in what they're finding, that if these pyramids are that far under, and this is just the tip of it, and we like to play a game, just this is the tip, but
that's the tip.
Yeah, but if that is just the tip, that base of that rod or that structure, it's got to be massive. That's
what she said.
Exactly. Thank you. I was waiting for that. I was leading you in there. I just was waiting for you to finish it out.
It is, yeah, that is pretty wild. It's also like, just the fact that even the way that there are pyramids that are shaped and built in similar ways from that time period, different places around the world. Like, not all exactly the same, but similar types of structures. Like, why are they built there? Like, why are they there? That you have them all over Central America. You have them, in Egypt. You have the Bosnian ones, and apparently you have them in Antarctica. And why do those exist? Did these people communicate with each other, or did something communicate? I mean, that cannot just be completely a coincidence, because there has to be something to that. And so I think it's fascinating. I mean, the pyramids in general, just wherever they be, I'm going to have to look into the whole Antarctica thing, because that's trippy. I definitely didn't even know about the pyramids in Antarctica. Wow.
I think that we're going to get a little bit more information on that coming soon, because I don't even know what year it was, but it's in the recent, I think 2014, maybe 2016. But we started getting John Kerry went there.
Wow.
There was Putin went there. All kinds of leaders around the world, religious leaders. Buzz Aldrin, he had to be airlifted out of there because of, and there's crazy theories on that too. They said that they took him in an anti-gravity ship from Antarctica and took him back around the moon where he supposedly landed and back to Earth so fast that this dude had an heart attack, and they had to airlift him, and that is proven that he had to be airlifted. Now the backstory could be filled in by everybody else, just making up the bullshit that they do. But I think
it's funny that, like, that's, even if that is possible in itself, but like the fact that the dude still had like a heart attack, like, we can do that, but we can't prevent a heart attack. I think it's aliens.
I'm gonna go with aliens too. So I guess we're gonna go right into off the fence. My off the fence and my opinion personally is that it's collective of the two. It's that aliens have been visiting this planet for much longer than our timeline, and I'm thinking more like, somewhere in the 250,000 year range in our past. And there's been multiple civilizations that have been given information by extraterrestrials and destroyed by Earth. Now, I don't think that it was caused by a god. I don't think it was caused by something certain, but just, I don't know, the evolution of a civilization. There's, we'll get into that in another episode, but he talks about how you become a type 1 civilization. I don't think we've ever reached that. We've been wiped off and restarted many times, whether it be natural or cosmic or whatever else, but we've been helped out throughout the way. And I think that, in the time of the Egyptians, it was a collective of, there was still some information and there was still some help from extraterrestrials trying to reboot our civilization to get us to a type 1 civilization. And we just can't get there. And so now I think more than any other time in history that we now have the opportunity with our technology and our advancements to make the leap from being so fucking complacent and stuck in our ego to make the jump to a type 1 civilization. We've been helped along the way to try to get there. We just consciously haven't yet. And again, that Graham Hancock goes into psychedelics and all this, and that is the earth giving us a way to not destroy ourselves. The earth, Gaia, has created these hallucinogenics for civilizations to advance our consciousness faster with a direct connection to the universe instead of having to go through the slow steps. And I kind of like that theory.
I like that as well. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things that's so, it's so expansive. You could go so many ways with it, but at the core of it, I would say, I think it's aliens of some capacity, whether we were at one point, like humans were here on Earth way back in the day and they evolved and left, and we are a branch of those aliens, or it's just some other species entirely. I definitely think that the quote unquote, they helped with the building of the pyramids.
I mean, I'm glad you go there because I have a fascination with, the universe in general. If it's anything that we think that it is, for us to be the only occupants of all that space, it just becomes super naive. I mean,
for sure,
it's just too much space, mass, probabilities, options, opportunities, everything you want to say, that we would have to be so egotistical to think that we're the only one, that it's all for us, that it just becomes too weird for me. And I think if you've ever had psychedelic experience or even just smoking marijuana or whatever else, that you get a perspective that understand that no, we're not the center. Like it's definitely something more is going on.
That's for sure. I mean, even just with weed.
Honestly, if you meditated and
for sure, meditation too. Yeah, it's the same kind of collective. I agree. Yeah. Because it's not just drugs.
Not substance. Yeah. I think substances are a shortcut.
Yeah.
To that understanding, but
you do get it through meditation as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't say we live in a world where most people don't even take the time or care, and they just really do think that we're the only one that exists and that it's all about us. And to think of it like that, I mean, even if you just think about it in a broke down level on this planet, Americans have a tendency to look at only our view and nobody else's. And when you think like that, or you think in those terms, you limit every possibility but your own. And that it's just so fucked up. Like
that's true.
You're not that special. You're special in your own way, but you're not special enough to be better than anybody on this planet. And you're not special enough to be better than anything in the universe. Like it's not surrounded towards us. It's obviously it's a very big question mark on everything. And everything we've been taught, we probably have to unlearn. Confidently say it's not about you and it's not about me. It's about a collective, and it's about understanding the collective. And we're just not there yet.
I agree with that.
And I think we will get there. And I think it'll be the help of people having an open global discussion like the Lost Info, or there's a lot of others. I mean, Joe Rogan, the pod father. I mean, he talks about how he started. He said he didn't even really realize it was happening until he was already so far into it. But he's had some of the greatest minds on his podcast, politicians, scientists, archaeologists. I mean, every different walk of life that he's collectively bringing info into a realm where everybody can access it. And that's what we want to do too. Not to like copy his layout, but it's important. It's super important that we all start learning ourselves, pound search it, because we have to use what we have now to find out where we're going and where we came from. It just because the collectors of the info, and I think that, and we'll touch on this, is basically the holders of knowledge of this planet, and the holders of the knowledge control the present, the future, and the past. And if we don't break that cycle, we will never evolve to what we should be.
That's true. Yeah.
Because the holders of knowledge hold everything possible and everything that we thought was possible. Yeah. Basically, they can manipulate anything they want.
Or no one really still knows anything.
And we don't. No, I honestly don't. I think that even those that hold the knowledge, like let's just say the Jesuits or the Vatican or the Freemasons or the Illuminati or whatever these major families, even if they hold the majority of the knowledge, they still have no fucking idea what's going on.
Yeah.
I think the only being that knows what's going on is the reptilian force that's feeding off our fears. Honestly though, when you look into that, it is kind of weird because we are a fear-based fucking society, and we always have been. And it is kind of weird how it fits in, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna jump on to our another untitled segment. I would like it to be called Tokes and Jokes, but if you have a better one, email us at thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. I got some doozies.
I'm ready.
These are some doozies. I'll warn you. Okay, so the builders of these ancient pyramids, apparently they liked music, and you'll never guess what their favorite band was, because they must have been time travelers. But their favorite band,
I don't know.
The Rolling Stones. I told you it was going to be a doozy. Now I buttered that one up a bit. Okay, so normally we're not going to say if this is internet found or written, but I didn't have time to write any of these ones, so I don't want to take credit for them, really, to be honest. The other ones we are going to leave it up to discretion. You can just think, oh yeah, these guys are idiots, and they wrote them, or we did. Who knows?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Well, my brother lived in Italy. He was in the Air Force, and this was 2.5 years ago. He did a whole stint of 4 years for the Air Force. And when he called, you see numbers from it's weird. Like when you live in the United States, and obviously, I don't know, if you don't have Nigerian princes trying to get your money and whatever else. So you get calls from around the world, and it looks really weird. Like there's like a plus 03, it becomes like you look at it and you're like, what the fuck is that? Because it's not a 10-digit number, it looks weird. So, any listeners out there, I don't know if you're from Egypt, but if you are, you can contact us and email us and tell us just so I know, because I think this is what I got the other day. But if you want to email us, thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com. But I had this weird thing, and my phone said from Egypt, or it said Egypt at the bottom, meaning the call came from Egypt. And I was thinking, fuck, man, I thought it was on the no call list, and and you're always getting these numbers. You're like, I know this is a telemarketer.
Yeah.
And I answered it. And it was a telemarketer. It so happens that they were trying to form a pyramid scheme.
So terrible.
I took you on the long path on that one.
I know. I was actually listening, and
I
I was
know.
like,
and I'm sorry.
And then I was like, a few seconds later, I was like, "Oh, he's about to tell a stupid joke." All right,
yeah.
we're back.
I was
No, that was actually kind of a clever one. I actually enjoyed that one.
honestly, that wasn't how it was written. I just buttered it up also because I thought the way it was written was just way too. It wouldn't be good for the listeners, even though it wasn't good at the end. I still made it. I drew you in a little bit. I think.
Yeah, no, that was interesting. It was a good one.
Now, I didn't smoke today. And I don't know. It'll be hard to smoke fully and do the podcast until we're more comfortable with our fans and our feedback and how this plays out and what you guys like and don't like, which you'll tell us, and I hope you do. So, but the ones that I write, even if I'm smoking, I'll lead you in there. I'll bring you in. But the ones that, like, I just read that one, and I was kind of like, oh fuck, this is brutal. Like, I have to at least tie a story in.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have much more than that because really, there is a Mike Tyson one. Oh fuck, I don't want to butcher it. Oh, I don't have it in front of me. Do I even do it? No. I think, well, in the modern world, all right. We look at these hieroglyphs and we think, wow, this was amazing that they were trying to, translate language into future people, beings, whatever, they're going to come across this and try to have them understand where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the modern world with all the technology, it becomes that they're really hard to read. And do you have any idea why the reason that they're hard to read?
Why?
Because I'm pretty sure that they're encrypted.
I didn't even know that there were that many pyramid jokes out there.
Oh, there's a lot, but they all seem to come back to the pyramid scheme, which, I mean,
that's good. That's a good one.
Yeah, they're actually they are putting some ones in really, really bogus ways. And then I was gonna do a Bernie Madoff and write a joke with Bernie Madoff. I didn't have the time, but I thought if any joke with a pyramid scheme and tie it in with Bernie Madoff would have been gold if you said it right. Now, I'm not a comedian. I don't claim to be, but I like the corny jokes as long as they're corny, but like even the more like thought out ones, written ones, a joke's a joke. Like,
yeah.
Don't be just so judgmental. Just fucking take it as a joke, like, and that's the thing is like, I'll even I say it, I'm like, oh God, that was brutal, but I got a chuckle out of myself. And
yeah, who cares?
Who gives a fuck? And we're gonna do this to you. I mean,
yeah, you're having fun. You're doing your thing. Like, who cares?
This might be, I don't know. You'll have to tell us. You'll have to write in and email us and tell us. But it could be a punishment to you guys, or it could be. I'm curious to see where they go with this smoke joke session, and we might just write it out if you guys don't want it. But we're gonna bring you fucking cheesy jokes, and I'm gonna like them. I'm thinking that you might too, and they might get, as the time that we go on and we connect with each other, they might get a little bit more risky, they might get a little bit more controversial, and I'm thinking that's what you guys want, but you'll have to tell us.
Let us know if you don't like it. Fuck off.
Yeah, if you want us to get edgier and crazier, we'll pander to that because we're not above it, We're not above it.
I'll show my tits on this podcast.
For the right
audio podcast.
For the right Patreon, I'll send you a dick pic. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're not going to be impressed anyway. It's no big deal. But seriously, if you want to have us more edgier jokes and get a little, we don't want to like completely just shit on the podcast, but we definitely want it to be fun for the listeners, and we'll try to make it that way. Because the topics we're going to get in are going to break your soul a little bit. They're gonna hurt. Some of the truth, some of the info that you dig up's like, God damn, that happened in the past. Fuck, what are we even doing? And I don't want it to be that. I want it to be, this is the knowledge. Take it in. You don't have to believe it, but this is what is there. And we can move on, have the discussion, and we can still have fun with it.
There's power in knowledge. I always say you can't change what you don't acknowledge.
And you can't fucking feel broken because honestly, me researching, and I love these topics. I've been broke down at the end of like a whole thing, like, holy fuck, man. I feel like this world has took us on a ride and it's depressing. And
no matter what it is, you don't have control over it.
Yeah,
you might as well enjoy it.
Yeah, don't make it depressing. Let's think about it more or less that this is the lost info, meaning the past info that's lost. And we're in a very unique time in history to be able to change that outcome, to collectively talking about lost info, get a better picture and a better understanding, and then transcend our consciousness to a fourth level. Fuck this fucking third dimension. Rise out as light beings and change this world for us as the beings that we know we are, whether we were spliced in DNA, created by somebody else, or God isn't what we thought it was. Fuck it, whatever. We have free will. We are created to do what we do, which is dissect this fucking information, figure it out, and be who we're going to be. Live the life we want.
I agree with that.
Hell yes.
I agree with that. Hell yeah.
Well, I think, well, other than the short story, we don't have one today, or I might splice it in. And if I do, I'll have to cut that out. But, but anyway.
I can do,
unless you got one, Duncan,
well,
throw in a short.
I was gonna say,
we're gonna be growing, by the way, in this podcast, and we're all new together. So let us develop with you and be patient.
You're editing this, right?
I'm gonna try not to edit as much as I can. Well, I mean, other than the times we veer off, I want to be completely transparent with our fans because it's a global discussion. But if we veer off the topic too much, I might have to put it in Patreon. Now, if you want to hear outcuts and the fun shit, you go to our Patreon and that'll be listed below in the description.
I'll share a story maybe a different night, because I was going to say, I don't know if I can even like think it clearly right now, but I will throw, but I do have some stuff that I'm definitely willing to, some stories I'm definitely willing to get into. It's just like,
well, hey, you can also save those for other podcasts, whatever else. We're gonna pick a lot of them, which I want to call it. I thought something like I don't know. This is just what came to mind, but like the galactic story siphon or the galactic story funnel, and then bring it in that way, so where you don't know if it's from you or if you're from somebody else or from just the internet or whatever else, but like somebody's firsthand account. But I don't know. We'll have to work on that. You guys can help us with the title or whatever.
For sure.
But if you want to tell one of your personal ones, and that you don't, obviously they're going to know it's your personal story. If you want to do that now or whatever else, let it rip. Let it rip.
Yeah. I mean, there was. I've had a few things. I mean, there was one where I lived in a house, and I had a sort of the short version of it is I had I had just gone back to college, and I was living with a roommate that I didn't really know that well. And it was just kind of a last minute thing because I had come back from LA and I was trying to finish school and back in Oklahoma. And so I moved in with this guy. And, it was just like a townhouse, but we had this strange stuff like kept happening. And one day we were sitting downstairs and we heard footsteps upstairs, and it was like a loft. And we kept hearing footsteps upstairs, and we hear like weird things like drop and weird things like throughout the house. And it was just super weird. And then, we both kept having those like same experiences. And then like one day I came home from school and all the furniture had been like flipped upside down and like moved around inside the house. And I was like, well, that's weird.
So there was nobody else in the house when this happened?
No, it was just us that lived there, and we were both at school.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Well, that'd freak me out.
And one time I was sitting in the living room, the fireplace turned on by itself. Then this is just the beginning. It gets really.
Well, let me ask you a question real quick. Have you ever had what they call the paralysis, where I don't know, a lot of people account's different. I've had it where I can't move, What?
Oh yeah. I've never had that. No.
Okay, because some people say that they can't move, and then they see like whatever, a fucking demon, and I don't know,
Yeah.
a being or
So
whatever sitting on
I
your chest.
I researched that a lot because I did end up seeing something in this story,
But you never had
and
one like sitting on your chest, sucking the air
no,
life
no,
out of you.
no, and I've never been frozen like in my sleep either. Like I've never had.
Yeah, I've
I've,
had that. I've had that, but I never saw an entity with it. I just couldn't move, and I knew I was
yeah, no,
awake.
I saw the entity, but I was like walking around like I was fully awake.
Oh, okay. Well, I've never. That's different than. All right, go on,
Yeah,
go on.
so yeah, I was fully awake. Um, but anyway, so then this weird stuff kept happening, and then it starts being at like 4 a.m. every morning. I would like shoot up out of my sleep, and my phone would be and I've never slept walked in my life, nothing. I would shoot up out of my sleep, and my phone would be unplugged and moved on the other side of the room, and my alarm clock would be turned off. And I was like, and it happened every single day, and I was like, what
Well,
the
what do you
fuck?
mean? It happened every day for how long?
A few weeks.
Well, that's fucked up. So then we're taking into account something's moving physical matter.
So
I don't know
then,
what it's called, but
and my roommate, he kept having these weird experiences and stuff too, or whatever. So then I walked past his. So we were upstairs. We both had rooms upstairs, and my room was like the far end, and I had a bathroom in my room, and then he had his room, which was like in the middle of the hallway. And then you walk down the hallway, and there's like a loft at the end, and this is the upstairs, and you have to like go down to get up there. Anyway, so I walked past his room one day, and his door was cracked open, and he had a Ouija board set up in his room. And I was like, oh, well, that's weird. And then so I asked him about it, and he tells me that he was like, oh, I'll get rid of it. And long story short, I like kept asking him. He swore to me that he got rid of it and told me he got rid of it. Whatever. And then shit kept happening, and I walked past this.
Well, they say if you use one of those, you open
portal.
a portal, and if you don't close it, it stays open.
So then I'm still waking up at 4 a.m. everywhere. I've now woken up multiple times with scratches down my back. I have scratches all over my body. I'm waking up every morning at 4 a.m. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? He swears to me he threw it away, like all this stuff. Then I walk past his room another day, and his door's cracked open again. This is like a couple weeks later, and the fucking Ouija board is still set up in there. And I was like, all right, like, okay, we're done
You
with
didn't
this.
throw that shit away, you liar.
Yeah, I was like, something's up. And then he started being super weird with me. He stopped coming home. He was like, wouldn't talk to me. If he did talk to me, he was like super aggressive. And like, I was like, what is going on? And then finally, one night I wake up, it's 4 a.m. My phone is on the other side of the room, and I feel like someone is literally stabbing me in like my lower back. It feels like someone is like,
you actually felt the pain.
oh yeah.
Oh,
And I was
bizarre.
I was like, what the
Okay,
fuck?
so
And
see, so you're the correspondent on this show and the co-host, and I would either have to call you a liar or that happened to you. You know?
yeah, sure.
So firsthand, which we want to hear. So if you have these, and I'm interrupting real quick, but
yeah,
make sure that you email us your story at thelostinfopodcast@gmail.com, because we definitely want to hear these stories.
for sure. And so,
Please continue.
So then I feel this pain in my lower back, and I have never had a kidney stone or anything like that. And so I'm trying to think logically still, despite the fact that this has been going on for weeks, where my phone is moved on the other side of the room and this Ouija board and all this stuff.
So you didn't want to move out of the house?
No, I did want to move out of the house, but I was in the middle of school, and I was in a lease. And obviously, like, money is tight. Like,
oh yeah,
I was, but there's some weird things. Like, I've experienced things like most of my life, some weird things. Never to this extent. After this, I feel like I kind of shut myself off from it for a while because it was a lot. But it's just kind of weird. Like, my sister ended up being a witch, and my great grandfather was a exorcist apparently. So like, I don't know, there's just some weird shit in my family.
Okay,
but
we're definitely gonna have to go down these roads.
Yeah, so
those are roads that you just open up to our fans, and Now they're as curious as I am. So
yeah, so
we'll leave that on pause. But
yeah, we'll go back to that eventually.
We're coming back to that. So put a pin in that.
Sure. So I go into the bathroom when I start feeling these pains because I'm like, something is up, something is off. Like I thought maybe like I said, never had a kidney stone, but I was like, that's what I've heard. Sometimes like when you have a kidney stone, it's like a pain in your back or your lower back. Yeah. So I go to the bathroom. I'm like, I don't know, like trying to pee or something, and then the pain finally kind of starts to go away. And I walk out of my bathroom door, which is in my room, and I look, and my bedroom door is open. And my roommate had not come home that night. He wasn't coming home that night. And my bedroom door was open, and it wasn't before. And it was really loud, and it was hard to open. It was like kind of like the hinge was not like an easy hinge. And the door's open, and I swear to you, I'm not joking you, man. I look, I'll never forget in my life. I look down the hallway, and I see like over, so there's like the balcony of the loft on the second floor, and then like over the edge but still on the second floor, but like where there is no floor. And does that make sense? Like over the so there's this entity floating up in up there.
Okay.
And it looks almost like
I guess, is your reaction like, fuck, I just don't want to be here, don't want to see it? Or is it, I want to get the fuck out of here? Or is it, I want to confront this thing?
No. I definitely did not want to confront it. I think it was a bit of shock. I was definitely scared. I was definitely
I mean, you'd be scared. Now, there's whatever they call the fight or flight, but
yeah, I didn't fight it or anything, if that's what you're asking.
Well, I'm just saying, like, there's like my scared is like, I want to fucking confront it, grab it, and like, or get the fuck out of here.
I'll tell you what I did. I saw it, and it was also profile. It was like profile to me, and it looked kind of like.
For the description of the fans, was it like the shadow creature that they say, or
no? It was like, because I've seen those before too. It was a physical. It was not like
a 3-dimensional kind of form.
Yeah, it was like
that'd be scary as fuck.
For sure. Like I said, I've seen stuff a lot, and I've had a lot of weird experiences, but I had never had something that was like as real as.
That'd be far scarier to see a 3-dimensional, what looks physical in your realm. So a shadow monster, what they call them, I guess. Some people just on drugs call things shadow monsters, and that's like out of the corner of their eye.
Yeah, it's just a shadow.
Yeah, but if you see something in 3-dimensional form and it looks physical in this realm, like. Oh,
and that's what it was, and it was profile to me, and then it turns and it looks at me, and it has these like bright orange eyes, and I was just like, all right, fuck this, and so I jump in my bed, and I'm not kidding you, it was just like profile, because I'm like, what the fuck is that like floating up in the air, and then it just turns and looks at me, and it has these bright orange eyes. Yeah, I don't know if it was that. I mean, this thing looked like an executioner kind of. It was like floating in the air, and
I'm already freaked out, man. I ain't gonna be able to sleep tonight.
I walk out of the bathroom and I see it. That was only a couple of seconds. Freaks me out, and I jump under my covers. Well, yeah. Once I realized, I mean, it was floating in the air, I didn't think about it having a weapon, because I was like, well, this is some other supernatural motherfucker. It doesn't need a weapon. It's multi-dimensional, though. You can't really. That's not something you can prepare to. So then that happens, and I jump on my bed, and I hide under the covers like a kid, and I ended up. It's weird. Like, I don't really remember that night going to sleep. I remember just like I got on my covers and I was like praying, and like I would have been like 20 or 21. So but yeah, so I jumped in my bed, and I was like praying and like telling this thing to go away and like all this stuff, and I was literally like under the covers, and I don't even remember falling asleep. And then I fell asleep, and then that was the next day. I was like freaked out. I didn't know what to do. My roommate he hadn't come back home in several days, which was like, that's a whole nother thing that I still never got an explanation for. And then the next night I was already like freaked out, but I didn't know how to even tell people what I had experienced without seeming crazy or I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he was involved with something weird or if he was seeing somebody or but he got, at first, like I said, when we were having the just weird experiences in the house, like the furniture and the noises and all that stuff at first, he was having those same experiences and he was like, well, this is freaky. This is weird.
Oh, so he wasn't outside the event completely.
No. And he was like that until I saw the Ouija board and in his room. And then I don't know what he did. And he was and then as I asked him more and more, I was like, why'd you lie to me about
just
it?
not close the portal.
Yeah, I was like, why did you lie to me about it? Like all this stuff. And then he started getting really aggressive with me and like started like not talking to me. And that's when he started not coming back. And that's when things got like really fucking weird. Okay. And that's when I didn't know how to even explain to anybody what was going on. I didn't know how to be like, yo, like, I don't know. I think my roommate like opened up a portal. Yeah. Like, I mean, I was just a kid, like, in college. I'm like, I'm just seeing this like fucking demon in my hallway or whatever. And so then the next night I wake up again at 4 a.m. and this time I wake up after the night after that happened. I wake up again at 4 a.m. and my phone is unplugged and moved on the other side of the room. And I hear like cats screaming. It sounds like how when cats fight, like when they're like, it was like that, but it sounded like it was on like a loudspeaker throughout my whole house. And I was like, all right, well, this is some weird voodoo shit that I've definitely never experienced. And I was like, I even looked outside my window to make sure I wasn't like crazy and that there weren't cats fighting out there because it was fucking loud. But I was like, I just want to make sure that, and there was nothing. And I go inside and the noise is still going on. It's still going on. It's still going on. And I was like, what the fuck? So I start like praying and I'm like telling this thing to go away and all this stuff. And I'm not kidding you. I swear I am in there and the noise finally stops. And I feel like there's like a gust of wind that comes through my bedroom. Mind you, my windows are shut. My bedroom door is shut. Everything is shut. There's like a gust.
Was it a cold breeze?
I mean, it wasn't warm. No, I wouldn't say it was like freezing, but it was cold. Yeah, it was definitely cold.
Okay. When they talk about dimensional creatures or demons or something, that usually like the temperature drops for a quick second when something brushes through.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah. So, but this big breeze came through, and I mean, like literally strong enough. Like I had paperwork on my like one of my drawers. My
dresser.
Yeah, my dresser on top of my dresser that like blew off, and it was super weird. And so I had that, and then that really freaked me out. And I flipped over on my stomach like this. And I was like covering my face. And I was just like praying. I was like, go away, go away.
Well,
go
yeah.
away.
Fuck, that's scary as hell.
And I felt this thing. It felt like something. I was flat on my stomach and I had my shirt off. I was just like in my underwear or whatever. And it felt like something was like came and hovered over me, like vertical over me. And then I'm not kidding you. I feel these two like claws basically touch the back of my neck and scrape down all the way down to like the bottom of my spine. And I'm like, I finally just scream. I'm like, go away. And then that stops and the cat noises start again, but even louder. And I just stay in that position. I'm like shaking and crying and praying. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I'm finally like, all right, I gotta get out of here. I gotta do something. And so I hop up. How do you
even move past that? Because something fucked with you from another dimension or a demon or
like
something.
How do I move past it in my life?
Yeah, like honestly, I'd be fucking like frozen in my bed for days. Well, like, I'm never leaving.
It would actually be funny to go back and have this conversation because actually one of my ex-girlfriends, I think that she would probably be willing to talk about this because she knew nothing about this type of stuff before. And I showed up at her house at like 4:30 in the morning that day in my underwear, like crying. and like she stayed up with me, and I didn't talk for like.
I mean, that's the least of. I wouldn't even leave the fucking house because I'd be like, something crossed into my mentions, moving my phone, and literally put its fucking dirty claws on me.
Yeah. Well,
and,
like that's what I'm saying is like that's how your mind.
fuck.
It's like in that the fight or flight thing. For me, at that time, once it actually touched me, I was like, I ran away, even though obviously this is like something from another dimension. Like,
Well, right, but I would probably
I got it in my call.
I'd try to turn over and be like, if you're gonna kill me, I want to see what the fuck is killing me.
Yeah, no,
But-
I did want to
But
see it.
at the same time, I say that, but I don't know because I've never been there.
Yeah, I didn't.
The claws might have touched my neck, and I'd have been like, "Ah, fuck, I ain't moving for days."
Yeah,
I'm
I
not leaving.
I was just like frozen there, and finally I got up and I ran through the house and I turned on all the lights,
I don't blame you.
and I was in my underwear and I just hopped in the car and I drove to my girlfriend's place. Yeah,
If something put its claws on me and moved my phone around, and I saw what you saw, I don't even fucking know, man. I
didn't even smoke. I didn't even smoke weed. It's pretty much what I did.
I don't know what else you would do because that would be so fucking traumatizing. Really, I mean, even when I think about it, I get the
you feel hope. You feel you're like, oh well, yeah. What can I do? What I mean,
right.
like I'm not gonna punch this thing. Like what?
Right.
Like,
If you're just gonna like whiff through it, like who gives a fuck?
Yeah, like I mean, it was definitely freaky. But anyway, so that's pretty much the end of my story. But I didn't talk for almost like the whole next day. I got more. We'll say sometimes I think some of it makes you have even more questions though sometimes because you're like, oh well, you're like maybe that was something that was like demonic. So then you're like,
if that's
you
possible, what isn't?
yeah, and you want to fall more into the category of like, oh, it's like a angels demons thing. But then, like I said, I've had a lot of weird experiences, and I've had other experiences that were like not entities, but were just like weird things with people. I don't know. I don't know. There's so many different things that you're like, oh, that could be anything. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, well, I thought about it and I was like, that could be turned into a horror film.
Fuck
You could just elaborate it a little bit more.
Listen to your story. That's the only reason I was asking questions for the details for the audience. I'm interested, and I say I want to experience, but I absolutely do not.
Yeah, and there's some people that like I don't tell that story often, but I didn't used to talk about it at all, or I didn't talk about any of my experiences like that at all to people, and now I more openly talk about it. I will say though that I feel like I actually in a lot of ways used to be even more sensitive than I am now. I feel like I'm sensitive in different ways now, but after that experience in particularly, I think I like closed myself off.
Tore the pyramids down. So on that note, I think we're going to part ways with our fellow seekers of knowledge and finders of info. Anything else you got to add to our fans?
Not for tonight. I don't think so.
I think we've pretty much extended this night to its full capacity. There's a lot on pyramids and there's a lot of other shit, and that's what we do. So like it, love it, be a part of the global discussion with us. Anything that you would like to add, make sure thelostinfopodcast at gmail.com, and we will definitely get back to you or try to interact with you as much as we possibly can. And hopefully when we get live streaming and full chat while we're doing this, we can interact with you while we're doing the show.
For sure.
And we're going to have great guests. We're already lining them up. It's going to be epic. So make sure that you are a seeker with us and a finder of lost info with us. Again, this is a collective global discussion. And with that note, the lost info is out.
Peace.